today women are not safe and secure. But why? We do not have the right to leave. We did not have the right to freedom. Why we do not have the right to speak? Today in the society, we all are educated, we all want development, we all want to go ahead. But what is the use if today we are on the top of the world, but still we do not know how to respect a woman, and we are taking it like it's okay, it's happening, it's a common thing. We see all the time, we see the newspaper, something happened to girls, something happened to women. It is common for us. Why we common? No, it is not common. It's not justified. It's not good.
अक्सर लड़कियां को ना अगर घर में रहो तो एकदम घर में रहो, बाहर बिल्कुल नहीं जाने दीजिए। अगर जाओ तो अक्सर दुपट्टा लेके जाओ, हर अच्छे से शरीर मतलब करके जाओ, ठीक है। और अगर शादी हो जाए तो घूंघट तान के हमेशा रहो, घर में रहो चाहे जहाँ जाओ, घूंघट टाल के रहो। और घर में अक्सर ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा चूल्हा बर्तन करना रहता है और कुछ नहीं, किचन में ही अक्सर गुजारा होता है वो लोग का। अक्सर वो लोग के देखा जाए तो जो रोड पे रहते हैं वो लोग के अक्सर माँ बाप नहीं होते, तो वो लोग के बचपन ही में माँ बाप चले जाते हैं, तो वो लोग का प्यार नहीं मिल पाता माँ बाप को, इसीलिए वो लोग मतलब कहीं ये इधर उधर जाके ठोकरें खाते रहते हैं। तो ऐसे ही लोग की लाइफ ज़िंदगी बढ़ते रहती है, वही देख के सब बड़े होते हैं। तो बाद में पहली बात तो ये है कि रहने का ठिकाना नहीं है और पेट भरने के लिए खाना भी तो नहीं मिलेगा, तो बैठे रहेंगे तो घूम के यही सबसे मांगेंगे कि था दे दो खाना के लिए, ये वो करके ये वही अपना।
और खाने के लिए वो लोग कुछ भी करती हैं,
खाने पेट भरने के लिए कहीं तक भी हद तक जा सकती हैं वो लोग,
क्योंकि लोग ये सोचते हैं कि अगर लड़के रहेंगे तो उनके घर पे बहू आएंगी, उनका हेल्प करेंगी। और लड़कियों को लोग सोचते हैं कि अगर लड़की मेरे घर पे पैदा हुई तो उन लोग को मतलब दहेज करके उन लोग को शादी होना पड़ेगा, और लड़कियां ज़िंदगी भर के लिए नहीं होती। लेकिन मेरे हिसाब से हमको लगता है कि लड़कों से ज़्यादा हमारे लिए लाभदायक लड़कियां ही होती हैं, क्योंकि लोग मतलब कि अगर हम पढ़ लिख कर कुछ अगर अच्छा काम किए तो अगर कहीं हमें कहीं कुछ मतलब कि कहीं फार्म देने के लिए अगर बाहर भेजा गया तो लोग को डर रहता है कि मेरी बेटी अगर जाएंगे तो उसे कुछ हो ना जाए। अगर हम कराटे सीखे तो हम बिना डरे हम कहीं भी जा सकते हैं और कहीं भी कुछ भी कर सकते हैं।
5 years ago, while I was carrying a bucket of fish on my head, I honestly thought I was gonna end up with like about 6 children at this point in a rural area. I didn't even think I'd be going to school, if I'm going to be honest enough. Where is Tinashe? Well, you know my name, Tinashe Louisa Munemu. I grew up being I think a really soft person. I hated fighting. I was loud with words, but I didn't like fighting. Every time I would get into a fight, I would get really emotional, and I didn't really quite like that. And then I was bullied most of my childhood, and basically most of my childhood and my teenage life I was bullied. I don't like thinking about it a lot. Anyways, I changed a lot from when I joined karate, because I've realized that now I'm not as soft. I don't think I'm as soft as I used to be. Jeannie actually love describing me as a fireball. I pick my fight and I fight for what I believe. When I saw Sensei Gerald, I was like, okay, I want to do karate. This is what I've always wanted to do. I want to be tough. I want to be strong. I want to be like Daisy. I want people to respect me, you know? So I think that's the main reason why I joined karate. Also, being bullied made me feel weak. And the situation at home with my dad and whatnot, it really made me feel weak. And I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to feel empowered. I wanted to feel like I can do anything. So karate gave me a family, because, we were a bunch of girls who had the same interests, coming from the same background. I felt like I can relate, and no one was judging me. And it was just a perfect scenario for me. It's more than just karate, it's more than just learning how to kick or how to self-defense. It created so much more, so much opportunities, so much peace. It gave me peace of mind, knowing that there are a lot of people who out there who actually want to see me win, you know, like, especially when I feel like, okay, I can't do this. Why am I still alive? Maybe I should just kill myself. I'm like, wait, but Mary loves me. This would really break her heart, even though I've never met Mary, you know? So it really gives me that family love that I haven't really experienced in a very long time, because it gives me so much peace of mind, honestly, to know that there are people out there who would go out of their way to just be there for me and for us, for the girls. And it's really amazing. It's a really, really amazing feeling.
My name is Madeline Musha. I'm 19 years and a first dan black belt. I started martial arts when I was a kid, maybe around 5 years. So I started doing it for fun. That's when I got involved into martial arts, and the biggest motivator was my dad. He's the one who motivated me into martial arts. For me, martial arts played a crucial part in changing my life. I can say so, because if it wasn't for martial arts, I wouldn't have heard about FairFight, and I wouldn't have got some help that I had right now.
I'm a karate instructor, and I've been practicing karate for over 20 years now. What really got me into karate is, when we were growing up, when we were young kids in primary school, you would go would watch some movies, you'd see Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Polo Young, and you always say to myself, I want to be like these guys. I want to be a good fighter like these guys. It's something that really did motivate me, so you'd go into it with that perception that I want to be a fighter, not knowing that there are other benefits that you get through the practice of karate. You end up understanding the art itself. You gain confidence, there's the aspect of respect, you build on your self-esteem. You also learn to endure, endurance, and you have to go beyond your limit. Your body will tell you like, no, you're tired, you can't do it. But as a team, as a dojo, as you're training as a family, you want to push hard, and it's also a life aspect that I've also gained in my own personal life. That there are times whereby in life, as a general, I want to quit, but I always say to myself, no, I have to push beyond.
When I was a child, I was interested by the kind of the beauty and the aesthetic of karate, but coming from a very traditional family, it was considered to be something that was not for girls. And I was sent to ballet classes, and I am very, I'm a large, tall, not particularly graceful kind of person. So ballet was not really the ideal hobby for me. And I came to karate much later when my own son was being bullied at school. So to fast forward to when I was sort of 30, and my son was experiencing issues, and so I joined him to a karate school, and I thought, well, yeah, maybe now is the time. So I also joined a karate school. So I've now been doing karate for 20 years. Yeah, never looked back. Just have always loved it.
I was about 8 or 9 years old when I started martial arts, and I actually started in my hometown of Dordrecht. It actually goes in a couple of phases, like what martial arts has meant to me. Like the most important one as a little kid is that I was just very hyperactive, and I didn't have too many friends at school. I was a bit chaotic. I don't know what the right word is, just like running around all the time. And what Aikido gave me at that age, when I started at 8 or 9, was first of all a place where I could get rid of that energy. So of course, a place where you can run around, where you can be physically challenged. But it also gave me a place with clear boundaries. I think it's the right word. There's a structure, there's respect for everyone. There's an environment in which you can feel valued, you can further yourself, in which you can challenge yourself. I think for me, and also still students that I see come into my dojo and other dojos like every day now, I really see them flourish in that, because they don't get that at school, they maybe don't get that as much at home. But I think it's stuff that everybody needs to like really grow as a person. I call Aikido almost my meditation. It's a place where I can go to empty my head. It's a place where I can ground myself. But it's also a place where I can, indeed, that's the grounding, like where I can really put my mind at zero, go through the motions, work out frustrations, and relax my body as well.
I felt like I was a very wild young adult dealing with a lot of stresses and a lot of issues, and martial arts helped me to channel a lot of my issues. I took up martial arts when I was 18 years old at a quite difficult time in my life. I struggled with mental health issues for a really long time, and I found in karate, and at the time I was also doing kickboxing, a release for a lot of the pent-up emotions that I was feeling, but also a kind of structure for them so that I wasn't wildly angry and then wildly depressed. I was able to channel that into something more productive. You can sublime your negative emotions and your difficult mental health situations into something that actually makes you live better, and I think makes you a better person. I genuinely believe that martial arts could be used not just as a form of physical empowerment, but also to help girls develop self-confidence. I had been working in the development sector for a number of years. That was my academic background. It's what I'd studied at university. And I had participated in several development projects, you can call them, in Africa and in Southeast Asia and in the Caribbean, because I just wanted to make the world a better place. I wanted to help people. I was really driven by that, and maybe that's because of my Christian upbringing. I had very strong values about giving back and loving thy neighbor in a way. And I felt in every project that I participated in that I wasn't really making the difference I wanted to make. And sometimes I felt like I was even doing more harm than good.
There's a whole bunch of these kind of projects where people from like Europe and the US can go abroad and do voluntary work in so-called developing countries. There's many different sides to why this can be bad. One of them is that like the students there, they get a new teacher every year for 3 weeks and then leave again. It's a long-term program, what we try to do. I think we're also definitely becoming more critical of how we deal with these kind of situations. FairFight started as like more of a studying project with people coming in for 3 weeks and then leaving. So in that sense, there are some similarities. People forget that it's, I don't know, if you're going to help someone, it's about them and not about you.
Yeah.
But we've moved away from that, and we're now more critical of who we bring and why we bring people. And it's more and more about the girls in India and in Zimbabwe and what they need. I think, our approach is also very much quality over quantity. Like, we just invest in people because they are people, and then we make sure that we don't give them only half of what they need.
The role of any teacher, as well as a martial arts teacher, is to guide your students to the next step they themselves need to take. And they might not know that next step themselves. We might not know the next step. But all you can do is give them the tools that, in your opinion, they need, they can use. So they are able to do that. And sometimes that can be to give them this physical outlet. I have this very active kid in my classes who always has too much energy. So for him, a big thing is getting rid of that energy and turning it into something useful, right? So he doesn't actually take it out on his younger brother. But for someone else, it might actually, like a bit more timid kid, it might be helping them feel strong. And it might be convincing them or showing them like, hey, you can actually, you can actually bite. You know, you do have, you do know how to make a fist. You can kick like someone away. It's not even about using that as someone else. It's showing them that they can and helping them believe. So your prime role as a martial arts teacher and any teacher is to help your students grow, however they might need.
We routinely bring daily life stuff into the dojo where students will reflect on experiences that they've had And, sometimes they get advice from their peers or from me, or sometimes they just want to vent about something that's happened. And we set aside time in training to have that connection to daily life, which for a lot of students is actually one of the most important parts of the class.
I think the physical aspect you can find anywhere. And I think a lot of martial arts are not actually teaching you to fight anymore. What I do think they teach you very well, but what a lot of sports can teach you is how to handle your own body and how it works. By going through these motions, by going through these exercises, and by physically challenging yourself, you get to know your limits.
For example, you're in the dojo, set up, you're training, and the instructor says, let's do 50 push-ups. And maybe around 30, you can't push on, you feel like you're tired, but you start to encourage each other, like, no, let's do it, up until you've reached 50. So with that, it's a life skill that you also acquire through the practice of karate that teaches you to go beyond your limit, So at the end, you won't be a quitter, not only in karate, but also in life.
And I think that's the physical part, and I don't think that's unique to martial arts. What I do think is unique to martial arts is that it comes with this etiquette where, first of all, you create a social environment with clear boundaries of respect, with clear boundaries and values such as everyone is equal on the mat. Clear boundaries as we respect each other on the mat and we're careful not to hurt each other on the mat.
I don't want to teach people how to smash each other's faces in. I do want to teach them to do their homework. I do want to teach them to be able to step up and lead if that's required. I do want to teach them to manage their relationships carefully and to, have that internal confidence, which will mean that they're less likely to get bullied, as opposed to teaching them how to deal with physical conflict, which is an important part of martial arts, but should always be considered to be a last resort.
I don't think a lot of martial arts teach you how to fight anymore. Like if you compare it to Guy, that guy can fight, like Krav Maga, like absolutely. And then if you take something as karate, well, there's practical moves in there, but it's heavily stylized, right? There's katas, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of rules. In Tang Soo Do, you're not even allowed to hit each other on the head. So it becomes even more far away from actual practical fighting application. And Aikido, we don't even have sparring, right? So I don't think you're as much training to become a warrior anymore. And I don't think what we do with FairFight, what we have done for a long time, is training girls how to kick ass. I don't think that's what we're doing, right? Because it's cool that we're learning them these moves, but the reality is that they're still small girls, like 120 centimeters, that might be facing guys of 2 meters, right? If you need to fight, that means a whole lot of other things already have gone wrong. And I think what's more important is that they get the feeling that they own their own bodies, that they're allowed to be angry, that they recognize ill intentions, that they start trusting their gut feelings, right? There's this whole host of other benefits that are actually much more important in preventing the self-defense situations than the actual self-defense fighting skills. Some of the values that I think a lot of martial arts teach is one of lifelong learning. Like, it doesn't matter how old or young you are when you enter the mat, you can practice, you can get better, you can get instruction, and you can grow. I think another one is, of course, the value of respect, which I already lightly touched upon before. On the mat, everyone is equal, everybody trains with each other, there's no prejudice, there's no bias, you're just there to train.
One of the key aspects of martial arts that differentiates it from other sports like badminton or basketball, for me, is what in Japanese is called do. And in Japanese, that translates roughly into harmony. It's a kind of philosophical background to martial arts that preaches a harmony within the body, the kind of body-mind harmony, but also the collective group harmony. The do is not just for a practice within the dojo, but also as a way of life. And so, for instance, values like respect, humility, honesty, continuous learning these Do values are values that you take with you in all aspects of your life. And martial arts then also provides the self-discipline to go like, okay, well, here are the steps. If you want to become sensei, this is how many hours you need to put in every week. This is what you need to learn. And it's a kind of ladder towards a brighter future that is explicit. There are certain rules about how you graduate from your belts in karate. There are certain rules about how you become a sensei. These rules tend to be implicit in other aspects of the lives of the girls. But having had the experience of climbing up that ladder once, then I think they can transpose that to other aspects of their lives. And we want to empower well-rounded individuals who can really get by in life as independent women who can then give back to the other girls in the community, because the long-running aim is that we make ourselves unnecessary.
At the end, you become a different person who is able to stand for him or herself, a different person who's in a position to say yes or no, a different person who's in a position maybe to distinguish what is right or what is wrong, a different person who can also speak not only for themselves at times, maybe for others who are also less privileged. Then at the end of the day, I can liken someone like that to a superpower, because they're not only standing for yourself, but they're also standing for others.
But there's also some parts of martial arts that I find very problematic. There's a very strong hierarchy in martial arts. It has happened multiple times that people are being disregarded simply because they don't have a 6th dan black belt in something. Just because someone is good in martial arts, for me, it's not enough reason to give them the kind of respect that they feel they deserve.
I have a real issue with hierarchy, and I'm a very atypical in terms of martial arts instructors in that way. The unquestioning obedience, no thank you. This kind of because sensei says so, no thank you. We want to develop critical thinkers. We want to develop people who understand boundaries and who do not allow somebody to hurt them without consent. If people have a high level in their karate, then I respect the skills that they have developed in order to get them there. But with my own students, I will always teach them that they, as martial artists, should be courteous, but they should only respect those who have earned their respect. And so that is not actually how many people, that is not the traditional way of a martial arts dojo, but it's something I feel very strongly about.
Hierarchies have always existed in martial arts communities for as long as they've been around, and they've been historically very structured around East Asian mentalities about how hierarchical structures should work in society. They could be quite oppressive in their historical context in Japan and China. Today, I think hierarchies in martial arts are a lot more fluid and a lot more based around people's values and their abilities. The kinds of patriarchal domineering hierarchies that dominated maybe in the early 20th century would not be so easily tolerated today in dojos, and that's certainly not the kind of values that we try to create in the FairFight dojos. For us, the hierarchies in martial arts are necessary because you're dealing with a physical skill and a set of values that does need to be transmitted. But it's not just a one-way street, because the do does change its definition over time. So that means that everyone that participates in the martial arts community also has a say in what do means to them. And that can sometimes challenge the purely skills-based hierarchy. We do have examples of this in FairFight, where some of the girls sometimes display more do than some of the senseis. And that can be a real challenge to get that message across, because I guess for some senseis, the stripes on the belt that indicate the dan grades can become a shield to not question your own values, question your own practices. I think that working with FairFight and really working with values as the leading principle for what you do, with really centering the do aspect, does call on us to be more self-critical and also critical of the traditional hierarchical structures.
Hierarchy, first of all, creates order. There's not a very difficult social pecking order. You know where you stand, you know what your responsibilities are, and you know where you can move within that. I think for a lot of people that can be really nice, you know? You don't have to be afraid what your social standing is, which creates almost calmness. It creates room to focus on other things. I think another thing is that indeed it shows a clear growing path, right? You know what the steps and requirements are, which you can take next, so you can just focus on that. It creates a path. It becomes very actionable on how you can improve. I think that's also very important. I think one of the things a lot of people struggle with nowadays is the ambiguity on how to do well in their jobs, at school, at a lot of places, and not clear methods to get better and to get further in life. But if you enter this clear, predetermined space of the dojo, well, you know, you get better by training. You have your teachers guiding you there. And you know, these are the requirements which I need for the next belt. Then I'll move a step along.
As a teacher, you make mistakes all the time. And I think for me, one of the most important things is always with students to acknowledge when you've made a mistake and apologize for your mistake and model the kind of behavior that you would hope that they would show. And in the past, sensei is never wrong.
On the other hand, the hierarchy is not something that's as explicitly felt. If you enter a dojo and you start as a white belt, you're not going to be like commanded around the room by the black belts or even by the person that started 1 week earlier. It's not an ultimate hierarchy, you know. There's actually a lot of respect both ways, to treat it more as a guiding and following principle. When I was in Japan, I was very explicitly fit within this framework of senpai and kohai. Your senpai is the person that is one step to the right of you. Maybe you joined a week earlier, maybe 10 years earlier, but he's directly on your right. Then your kohai is the person directly on your left. The senpai is actually responsible for the kohai to make sure he does well, that he follows the rules, that he understands what he needs to do and where he needs to be. So it's really kind of like a more older brother kind of hierarchy of yeah, he knows better, he's done it before, he's going to help you do well as well. But it's not oh, do my dishes or wash my car. That's absolutely not the type of hierarchy. So I think it's a scary word, but in practice it just creates a nice environment where people know what they got to deal with, what's ahead of them, what's going to happen. At the same time, with the kohai, what's someone you can pass your knowledge on as well. It's someone you can invest in and make sure they do well and kind of guide them along, because you know how it was when you first entered. So it's nice to help the other people pass along as well.
And that's where I think martial arts is extremely strong, because you should be developing leadership and teamwork simultaneously, and helping students to understand when it's appropriate for them to read a room and to know when they should be contributing and when they should be supporting. You can do without any of that stuff, but I think why would you? Martial arts is such an amazing pivot for all of these life skills that we could and should be explicitly teaching them and using the examples that the dojo provides freely.
The cultures in which we work are definitely historically patriarchal. There is a historic imbalance of power between men and women in these cultures, but that's not a balance of power that serves anyone. The men under that kind of patriarchal regime don't benefit from the patriarchy. A lot of them are made sole responsible to provide for the well-being of the family and are pushed, for instance, in Zimbabwe to leave their country just to try and make ends meet by getting another job in South Africa, and then they end up not coming back. So patriarchy is actually quite harmful to everybody that's involved in that process. So when we empower women, we empower the whole communities. We're not trying to take power away from the men. We're trying to create a system in which equality benefits everybody.
It's my passion of empowering the girl child. You know, if you look at our society, you find out that women or girls, they're always looked down upon. And some time back, you find out that women were not even accorded the privilege to go to school. So if a family is set up as with so many, maybe four 4 boys and 3 girls. They will make sure that all the boys go to school and the girls were not accorded that privilege. So girls grow in the society, they always have that inferiority complex since they've been looked down upon even from their homes, you see. So that's the main reason why I've always wanted the girl child to be equipped, to be empowered through the practice of martial arts.
And then we tell the girls, imagine you could be sensei. And that then opens up the imagination to, well, if I could be sensei, what else could I be? Could I be the accountant? Could I be a lawyer? Could I be a doctor? Could I be a politician? So it's all about opening the doors to new imaginations, because if you're dealing with a culture in which women are constantly put down, in which they're not even given the space to imagine what is possible, then sometimes we need to show them. To me, empowerment really involves triggering the imagination for possibilities.
On a kind of society type level, women in India are disempowered and they need to take power back, and men do not want to give them the power because it's threatening to their position of privilege. And that is automatically difficult. I guess it brings you into concepts of what's fair and what are the implications. So if by being empowered I am taking power away from somebody else, where did that power come from? What is it being used for? And is, when you look at it, is it an imbalance of power that has, that is cultural or social? And why did I not have that power? If I should have that power, why do I not have it, or why did I not have it? So I think, again, it's going to be contextual, isn't it, in any individual situation. You certainly wouldn't want to say, I want power at your expense.
It's not that what we're trying to do is have these girls become like world dominators to take up space and not leave any space for anyone else. That's not the point. The point is that they don't get any space right now. Them finding their own voice and being able to say something that's not taking anyone's space, like there's some empty space there already that they are then just able to claim.
I don't think empowerment means taking up more space in the room. I think empowerment means taking up your own space in the room. If you work from the idea that everybody has their own space, the only time you take up space from someone else, it's not your own space anymore. And I think that's where it becomes these self-defense kind of situations, whether verbal, emotional, or physical, right? Like, we have our own space. You should feel like you can protect that, but it should never come at the cost of taking someone else's space. So at that moment, you're no longer defending, you're an aggressor. And of course, you need to be able to defend your own space. And that can feel as aggression, right? Like, there can be anger, there can be fury, and very often righteous, especially while you're in a relationship or while you're in a certain situation where someone has been taking and entrenching on your space and stomping around on it for years. Well, yeah, like, they're gonna say, you're taking away my space. But maybe it was your space to begin with, right? And I think coming to that realization is one of the benefits that a lot of people have going into martial arts.
I realized that you do not need to whoop anyone's ass to actually win anything, honestly. The first rule we are being taught in karate actually is, if you're in any danger whatsoever, it's actually better if you try to run away first. Sensei Gerard was always telling us, hey, I know we are learning how to fight, but the road to life is, if you see someone who is always violent or is always mean to you, try love first. And if love doesn't work, then go to compassion. And then if compassion doesn't work, keep your distance. It boosted my confidence because I realized that there's so much more to just fighting. You can win arguments by just walking away. You can win whatever you want to win, like any bad situation, by just handling it in a nicer and subtle way. You don't always need to fight. And this honestly taught me to pick my fights. So that is one biggest thing I learned from karate, besides just knowing how to like punch someone or how to kick someone. I also learned how to pick your fights, when to fight, when not to fight, when to try to get someone else to be involved in a situation so that you can actually try to solve the situation without being violent.
All females in India are pre-groomed for abuse by society. The concept that women have to be constantly like submissive and polite always is immediately problematic. So we're starting from a very different place. That's why it's so incredible to see our Disha girls really, they stand up for themselves and for each other. So for example, in the new school that our girls are in, where they feel that they're not getting the right food, or where their equipment isn't okay and that kind of thing, they will protest. And they are the charity girls in an independent school, so they are expected to be grateful and quiet, and they're not, which is awesome. And when you see them develop over time, they've been growing up. It was one of the funniest things was, we decided that we were going to take them out, and suddenly there was a rush of, hair brushing and clothes changing and all sorts of very normal teenage girl, oh, we're going out kind of thing. Whereas before that wouldn't necessarily have been the case. And it's just amazing to see the dynamics of them as a group and how well they support each other.
We've been working with the girls at FairFight since 2015, and we have quite a number of girls now that have been with us with 5 years or more. And we have a lot of success stories to show for it. We have 3 girls who have made it into university, and 1 girl who's doing a vocational training. We know these girls very well because we've been working very closely with them, and they were all on scholarships with us. And we can see that they really take the mentality of self-discipline and the mentality of this step-by-step approach to emancipation into their professional and educational lives. What we do notice as well is that it's an ongoing struggle. They deal with trauma from their childhoods. Life is still really, really hard for these girls, whether it's Zimbabwe or India. There's violence in their lives, there's poverty in their lives, and that's not something that FairFight can solve. But we do see that they are willing to put in that work, to have the discipline to work also on their own trauma, to work also on their psychological empowerment. And that's, I think, a real gift that we have been building together in collaboration with these girls. For instance, we hired a psychologist to help the girls work through some of these processes. And to me, the fact that they are willing to go on that journey, to go where most girls in their culture are too afraid to go, that's really a sign that what we're doing is working.
The girls that we work with at Disha have an understanding of their intrinsic value in a way that other girls that I work with, for example, with other vulnerable groups in India, have not had those years of nurture and that validation, which has made our girls, our karate girls, much better able to stand up for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really very, it's something that we know and feel, but it's really good to see that play out because we see, this small group of girls and the effect it has on them. And you can see that has had a massive impact on their lives, which is great.
It might sound like all sorts of like very small things that they feel comfortable with doing, but the whole idea of like being comfortable to take up space, it's such a basic thing that you need to be able to get anywhere in this world. If you don't feel comfortable taking up space, you're not going to get anywhere because people are not just going to give you things. You have to claim them. And I think that's something like you can see that the girls feel more and more comfortable claiming the things that they need. And they know that they have worth, and that they're deserving of things, and that it's not just people helping them, it's not because they are in need of help, but more because they have potential and are deserving to further develop that potential. Something that you see very strongly in pretty much all of the girls is that they care about gender equality. So there's quite some girls who want to be a lawyer so they can work on law for gender equality, and girls who want to be a gynecologist. So like one girl who wants to start a restaurant, and like that's also a space where you can implement forms of feminism or apply the practice of feminism. And yeah, it's fascinating and very inspiring to see that some of these girls, even though they're like 14 years old, they already know so much about the world. And I think no matter where they will end up, they will bring about change in some form or way.
One girl comes to mind that joined the dojo already like a while ago. There's this very shy girl, very timid. And actually she discovers that she has this huge affinity for martial arts, and she does really well. But every time she's complimented, she almost shies away from it, like, oh my God, no, what, me doing good? And a while ago later, like a year or two after she joined, she actually came up to me like, hey, I finally started therapy. I have these issues with my father, and I was never able to confront them, but I've finally taken the step. She had this inner belief where she believed, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing well. And just being in an environment where she could do well, and she was allowed to do well, and she had the tools she needed to do well, helped her process the fact like, hey, maybe more in general in life, I'm allowed to do well,
I always cherish those stories, and I'm always happy to hear feedback from my students. But most importantly, I'm happy as in fact, all of my students have become well disciplined. It's something that I do cherish more than anything, more than any accomplishment that they can ever have in their lives. When you are a disciplined person, a respectful person in society, it's something that I do cherish the most. And even some, the parents coming to me, giving me feedback on their children's behavior, how that has changed before they started karate up to now, always puts a smile on my face, when I hear good stories of my students becoming well-disciplined students in society.
I'm just so proud of the community that we've created and all the amazing people that work in it. I sometimes have to pinch myself when I realize where we started 7 years ago and where we are now. If I look around me, there's maybe 60 or 100 people working around these programs and putting all their heart and soul into it, and who are just so committed to what we do. And we have all these results and all these girls coming out and really showing us that what we do matters. And that's really something that I can look back with pride and say, wow, we built a great community here. And this is really something that we can all just take a lot of pride in. And so what we really started is a movement. It's a movement to really structure how we can use martial arts to empower vulnerable people within communities. And that isn't reliant on the organizational structure of FairFight itself or how much money FairFight can bring in, but it's really a model to say to the martial arts community, which is huge around the world. There are so many people around the world who practice martial arts, and deep down, because of the values of Do in martial arts, we all want to give something back. That's the essence of martial arts. And I'm very proud that we've been able to develop this model that says to all the people in this massive community, hey, if you want to do something, why don't you look at what we've done? You could be doing the same for your community.
For me, the girls in Zimbabwe and the girls in India, they're not poor girls that need to be saved. They're all very fierce women that deserve to have opportunities and to develop themselves and make something out of their lives. And the only thing we're doing is trying to create the situation or the environment where they can actually do that. But in the end, I think, the credits go to them, not to us. We just facilitate, and they do the work.
So I really want to be that person who grew up from a very, very underprivileged background, who experienced our culture at its darkest point, but then who managed to escape it. The bad parts. It's not all bad. Yeah. We are beautiful people. But the bad parts, and then I managed to go to experience another different culture or even different cultures, and I pick the beautiful things in those cultures and I come back to my own culture, and then I get to enlighten them on, hey, okay, you don't actually have to bow down to these men completely. You have a whole life ahead of you. You might as well just try to pursue that and try to make a better person of yourself.
To all those people who feel disempowered, my advice to you is, please don't stop what you are doing. Hold on, keep on the good work. There's still the light at the end of the tunnel. So don't give up. Don't stop whatever you are doing just because you feel disempowered. Find that motivation, that inspiration inside you to keep on the good work, to push on. Never lose hope. Hope is always on the way. Just hold on. Everything will be fine. So I always motivate you. Don't you ever stop what you are doing just because you are disempowered. Your time to shine will come. Just hold on. And my last words is, if you think you can, indeed you can. So please keep up the good work. Thank you so much.